Karoline Leavitt sat alone in her dressing room at Global Studios. The soft hum of studio lights filtered through the walls, but inside it was silent. Her fingers tapped the armrest of her chair, not with nerves, but precision, preparation. Her aide, Alyssa, stood nearby, holding a tablet filled with statistics and recent media clips. "You sure about this?" Alyssa asked. Carolyn looked up, her eyes flinty. "He mocked Americans. This isn't about me. It's about drawing a line." Alyssa hesitated. "He's got fans, big ones, and he's unpredictable." "I know, but so am I." Across the hall, Ricky Gervais laughed heartily in his own green room, sipping a whiskey. He was in familiar territory. Late night, cameras, lights. This was his playground. "They take everything so seriously here," he muttered to his friend Stephen Merchant. "Tonight's just comedy, mate. I'll dance circles around her." Merchant raised a brow. "She's not just any press secretary, Ricky. She's fast, knows her facts. You might want to take her seriously." Ricky waved it off. "I'll be fine." He turned toward the mirror, adjusting his jacket. "Besides, who's tuning in for a lecture? They want laughs. I give them laughs." "Unless the laughs backfire," Merchant mumbled. Backstage, the production crew prepped. Sound checks, countdown clocks, makeup touch-ups. In the shadows, campaign operatives and White House aides exchanged nervous glances. This wasn't just a debate. It was a battle over cultural ground. Outside, a line of supporters had gathered. Some held MAGA signs, others waved British flags. Protesters argued across metal barriers. A young woman shouted, "Comedy isn't politics," while another fired back, "Mocking my family isn't comedy." Upstairs, producers watched the trending metrics. Viewership was spiking before the show even began. On X, hashtags like #Comedy'sConservatism and #LeaveItLive had already taken off. Caroline stood from her chair, smoothing the front of her crimson suit. "Time?" "4 minutes," Alyssa replied. Carolyn took one last look at her reflection. Her mind wasn't on her appearance, but on her parents back in New Hampshire. Her dad would be watching from the old truck dealership office, TV mounted above the cash register. Her mom probably baking something for the staff. They believed in her. She wouldn't let them down. Across the hallway, Ricky cracked another joke. "Bet she's got a binder full of Fox News quotes." "Just remember," Merchant warned, "she's not here to play, and neither is her audience." The stage manager's voice echoed through the hallway. 30 seconds to air." Caroline breathed in. Not just oxygen, resolve. Ricky might think this was entertainment, but for her, it was personal. She stepped into the shadows of the hallway, heels echoing with each step. The storm hadn't started yet, but it was coming. The moment had arrived. Jake Tapper, now fully visible beneath the piercing stage lights, turned to face the roaring audience. His voice thundered above the clamor. "Welcome to the global debate. Tonight you're about to witness a confrontation unlike anything we've aired before." The camera panned to the packed studio, row upon row of spectators buzzing with anticipation. Journalists clutched notepads. Influencers prepared their clips. Everyone had one question: who would dominate the night? Tapper's voice cut back in. "From London, a legend of satire, a man who skewered kings and presidents alike, Ricky Gervais." The crowd exploded. Ricky strolled onto the stage, every inch the showman. His casual black blazer, open-collared shirt, and whiskey glass in hand sent a message. "I'm not worried." "Thanks, Jake," Ricky said as he took his seat. "Nice to see America still runs on applause." The audience laughed. The Brits in the crowd cheered. The Americans? Mixed. Tapper gestured toward the other side of the stage. "And now, please welcome the youngest White House press secretary in modern history, Karoline Leavitt." Applause erupted, louder than expected. Caroline walked out slowly, chin high, shoulders squared, wearing a bold crimson blazer that seemed to glow beneath the lights. Her heels clicked in rhythm, matching the beat of her composure. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. She took her seat without a word. Tapper nodded to both. "We'll begin with opening thoughts. Ricky?" Ricky turned to Caroline. "You know," he began, grinning, "when they told me I'd be debating the press secretary to Donald Trump, I thought, wow, The Apprentice really got renewed." Laughter erupted. Caroline's expression didn't change. Tapper intervened. Caroline, your response, you say? She turned slightly toward Ricky, hands clasped. Mr. Gervais, she said, her voice steady, I came here knowing you'd treat this like stand-up, but there's a difference between humor and mockery. And while you joke, real Americans are struggling. I'm here for them. The audience quieted. Ricky laughed nervously. Emotional card, right on cue. Caroline's reply was immediate. It's not emotion, it's reality. Not everyone can afford to sip whiskey while mocking the world. A low murmur swept through the crowd. Even Tapper raised an eyebrow. Ricky shifted. Look, I poke fun at power. That's the job. You defend a man who tweets at 3 a.m. about aliens. Laughter again, but lighter this time. Caroline leaned forward. I defend the Constitution, the economy, and the 7 million jobs this administration has created. What do you defend? A punchline? The studio buzzed. Phones were already recording. Tapper stepped in. Let's pivot. Ricky, last month you said American politics was just comedy material. Do you stand by that? Of course, Ricky shrugged. If it looks like a circus, smells like a circus, Caroline cut in, then you haven't seen the audience. Because we're not clowns. We're citizens. And we're done being ridiculed. Tapper looked back and forth between them, uncertain whether to moderate or let the tension build. He chose the latter. Ricky raised an eyebrow. Didn't you once say drone-dropping condoms was a solution for Gaza? A ripple of uncomfortable laughter. Caroline didn't blink. Out of context and factually false. But you're not here for facts, are you? Tapper attempted to regain control. Let's keep this constructive. Caroline didn't let up. I came with receipts. She tapped her phone. The backdrop behind them flickered, then played a clip of Ricky, years ago, scoffing on a UK show. I don't care about American politics. It's just material. A collective gasp. Ricky's smirk wavered. Caroline stood. You don't care. So why are you here judging what you don't understand? The room shifted. A new energy coursed through it. Half the audience leaned forward. The other half sat frozen. You fly first class, mock coal workers, farmers, truckers, she said. Then head back to a mansion. That's not comedy. That's cowardice wearing irony. Ricky stood too. All right, are you saying comedians can't speak? I'm saying they should know what they're speaking about, Caroline fired back. The crowd burst into applause. Tapper stood now as well. Let's pause. But Caroline turned to the camera. This isn't about Trump or even me. It's about a country that's tired of being mocked by elites who wouldn't last a day in the lives of those they ridicule. The studio shook. Hashtags ignited. Ricky looked around, caught between a retort and retreat. Caroline took one final step forward. Tonight you thought you were starring in a comedy, but you walked into a reckoning. The debate had ended, but the storm had only begun. Outside the studio, a sea of reporters flooded the plaza, elbowing for position as audiences spilled into the streets. Camera lights flickered like lightning against the dark sky. Microphones were thrust forward. Opinions were shouted into lenses. And in the center of it all, the echo of Karoline Leavitt's final line, "You walked into a reckoning," still hung heavy in the air. Within 30 minutes, #Caroline Crushes had trended globally. Conservative influencers, MAGA-aligned pundits, and even some moderates began calling it the moment America punched back. Fox News declared it a cultural turning point. One headline read, Leavitt turns comedy stage into constitutional court. In a modest house in New Hampshire, Caroline's parents sat stunned. Her mother, Mary, had tears in her eyes. She didn't just survive, she whispered. She conquered. Her father, Bob, nodded slowly, hand tightening around a chipped mug of black coffee. She spoke for people who fix trucks, not tweet jokes. Back at the studio, Caroline sat alone in her dressing room, the red blazer now draped over the back of her chair. Alyssa burst in, nearly breathless. Caroline, the numbers, it's wild. Even the BBC's covering it. CNN called you fierce. The New York Times said, commanding presence. And Breitbart? They just crowned you lioness of the right. Caroline didn't look up. She stared at her phone, watching the flood of notifications. Every major outlet, every political commentator, Even a few Hollywood actors had weighed in. A message from Senator Hawley read, "Proud to stand with you." One from Trump himself, "She's got more fire than all of them combined. Total winner." Still, Carolyn wasn't smiling. Not yet. "I didn't come here to win," she said finally. "I came to reveal," and he revealed himself. Meanwhile, Ricky Gervais was nowhere to be seen. Aides had whisked him out a side door after the show, bypassing the press. He sat now in the back seat of a black SUV, scrolling through X, the blue-white glow of the screen reflecting off his weary face. The posts hit like punches. Ricky met his match and lost. This wasn't comedy. This was collapse. Karoline Leavitt just did to Ricky what he's done to others for decades. Stephen Merchant, riding beside him, stayed quiet until finally asking, "You okay?" Ricky didn't answer. He kept scrolling. One tweet in particular made him pause. "When arrogance meets authenticity, only one survives." Back in the studio lounge, Tapper sat in stunned silence with his producers. "That wasn't a debate," he said. "That was an awakening." "You think we should edit it for rebroadcast?" a producer asked. Tapper shook his head. "No, let people see what Raw looks like. This is the new political theater. Unfiltered, emotional, and absolutely real." By morning, the segment had over 40 million views across streaming platforms. Politicians took sides. Journalists wrote think pieces. College students debated in classrooms. Comedians defended Ricky. Veterans praised Caroline. The Guardian ran the headline, "British wit meets American will and loses." Vanity Fair, Karoline Leavitt becomes the voice of the heartland. Even Jon Stewart tweeted, albeit with sarcasm, "Guess satire's dead. R.I.P." Caroline, flying back to D.C., sat by the window of a red-eye flight. She wasn't tired. Her mind was already working ahead. She knew what came next: scrutiny, magnification, attempts to delegitimize. But she had faced a cultural icon and stood taller. An elderly woman across the aisle leaned over and said, "You reminded us we matter. Thank you." Carolyn nodded. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. At that same hour, Ricky sat in a penthouse hotel suite in Manhattan, the curtains drawn, the TV off. He opened his laptop and typed the title of a new comedy set, American Reckoning. But after staring at the screen, he closed it again. The jokes wouldn't come. The echo of Caroline's words haunted the silence. "We're not perfect, but we fight." And tonight we reminded the world, America is no joke. And somewhere deep down, Ricky knew she wasn't just defending a country, she was redefining the battle lines.